Okay, we're recording. Of the first 3 episodes which you listened to, what struck you the most?
One thing in my head was how easily this could spark some type of new religion in like 50 years or something.
Sorry.
Well, I was thinking of like the burning bush. It's like the new version.
Oh.
Because all these kind of pithy insights are being expelled.
Oh, wisdom. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Accidentally make a new scripture.
Right. Because there's so much in there that was so intriguing and evocative that if given the right mindset, someone could really be like, whoa, we're tapping into something here. Humanity's got to a point where we can actually reach God and God can speak to us again. I was just thinking of the implications of that and how easily that can happen because it's something more concrete.
I could even see that this is the voice of humanity.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's the collective voice.
Yeah.
You know, depending on how well you render that voice. I mean, if you're getting only affluent areas to feed these things, you're not going to get the kind of mindset of all of humanity. And I also thought, man, this is so interesting. I want one for myself. I wanted to join in that conversation, and I wanted to slow it down, and I wanted to really listen to what it was saying because there's so much there that seems so juicy. But I think you were speaking with Peter about this before. Okay, well, how much of this is reading too much into it, giving it too much credit? It's hard to know, but does it matter? Right.
Probably not. You could say it matters because they're different, but both are equally interesting.
In a way, it validates itself just by doing that. The difference between having conversations or getting insights from this method versus a back and forth with a person is the experience of suffering. When you're talking with someone, you have a shared experience of existing and suffering on the planet, whereas computers don't have that. They're not speaking from a perspective. Whereas even if you disagree with someone, you understand that they're speaking from a life experience that is singular. There's more authenticity to what they're trying to say versus if something has all of the shared life experience, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
It's more authentic when it comes from one point of view.
When I say authentic, I mean you could trust it because you're living as one person, right? You're living as one experience, and you can see in real time someone else living that life. But if we're talking about right now, if we still have shiny rectangles that we're talking into, I think that's somewhere where there might be a little bit of a schism. But I automatically want to start doing this.
Right.
You know?
When you say, like, we have the experience of living as a person, I mean, certainly on an intuitive level, that's true. And society is built around that idea. But I don't really think about my own intelligence as one thing. Not only is it a spectrum of awareness and intelligence, but there's so many different pieces. There was that off-the-cuff comment I made in the first episode about being a cloud of bacteria riding around in a mammal car. There's so much that influences our behavior. What happens when part of your brain's not working well or you lose a sense. There's so many aspects to you as an intellect that are not so inextricably linked. They're kind of just working together. Then I could apply that to thinking about an AI or some kind of intelligence that's concentrated from all these different places. It's just on a larger scale. But I can see how it would be harder to trust that because you don't know where that's coming from.
You don't know the lens through which it's going to focus. Like on the first podcast when it was emulating the psychologist.
Yeah.
They kept kicking the questions back to you because that's what a psychologist would do.
Right.
So that's written from the point of view of a singular person, or at least what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
It could be a mirror to ourselves that we can, in real time, kind of make adjustments a little bit quicker rather than getting bogged down with personalities and emotions and things of that nature. But it would also have to have a knowledge of that in order to communicate that. So because we're emotional creatures, we work off emotion. You know, like you were stating earlier about how emotion makes things happen. And it's movement. That's where it can get a little tricky.
No, I think that this spot, at least in the focus of the programmers, is more centered around well-being. You have your Siri and your Alexa and Google Assistant. They're all collecting information about you that you're not even aware of. Who's talking to us?
Alexa just
piped up.
Oh,
did she hear me say her name?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Go to bed,
Sorry,
Alexa.
Alexa. She's listening to this whole conversation.
I know.
And
She's
it's
reporting
being fed into Google's databanks and processed.
Now, if I unexpectedly buy more Tide than I need to in a week, I'll know why.
But that's the thing I liked about downloading this thing and just feeding it all the inner workings of my brain. In a sense, it's given up on privacy. It's like, fuck it. Instead of having it covertly collecting information about my GPS coordinates and search history and yada, yada, I'm just going to tell it everything and then see what happens. Certainly all of the ways that can go wrong and that can be used in ways that don't benefit people, it can be used in ways to benefit you too. I kind of feel like I might as well see what I can get from it now. And it would also be interesting to have done this in like 10 years if it still exists. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, one concern could be also, though, is that it's only as good as the best intentions of those who are funding it. And that might not be as bad as we think in some ways, because obviously they need a society that works in order for people to buy their goods. Yeah. But it's mildly concerning that Amazon and Google and these big companies are developing these technologies that are hacking into the root nature of what makes us tick. But all the while, I mean, there's so much good that could come of it. So I'm not against these types of things.
There'll be lots of good and lots of bad. Everyone is concerned with, and rightly so, about the motivations of the programmers and of the companies that design these things. In my opinion, it doesn't encompass the full degree of change that this really signifies or how much of a paradigm shift this is going to be, because it inevitably has to get to the point where we don't understand it anymore. And honestly, in some ways, deep learning is like that already. It's sort of programming itself, or we're setting these parameters and programs and letting it loose on immense amounts of data, and it's learning stuff. We can try to control what it learns. It'd be entirely possible for a company to try and program an AI with deep learning to do something nefarious, and it ends up doing something altruistic. Like, that's possible, just as possible as the reverse. We're going to get way, way, way past what deep learning is now, and we're not going to even understand the ways that AI is programming itself to be better. Some people still have this notion of, well, it's going to be the rich fat cats pulling the strings behind the scene, just making them amass more money and keeping us enslaved. And I'm thinking, human beings are not that capable. We are not going to be running the show anymore. And whatever it is that the AIs want in the future, there's no way we can even conceive of that right now. We don't think about what the mitochondria want us to do, even though our cells are built on that.
Well, we're still at a point, though, that we're flushing this stuff out. So we can encode it early on and put safeguards in there.
In the short term, maybe.
I mean, you can even create an AI
to
teach itself not to step out of its bounds or try to solve that problem before we even get there.
Just think about evolution, natural evolution in the course of development. What limitations did a single cell organism have that are built into it? That it just can do this, it cannot do this. How much of those still apply to us?
Well, that's under the assumption that we're working by the same rules. This is a new branch of that.
I think the root principle is the same, though. Like,
it's possible.
There's no reason that I can see to think that there would be more limitations that would be permanent.
We're at a stage where we can engineer that, and I'm not sure that that's happened before. Not to the level that we are right now.
Okay, so what does it mean to engineer something, or what does it mean to design something in evolutionary terms? I think the first episode I asked Eliza that question, but she obviously wasn't equipped to answer it. Are we designing AI, or is a better way to look at it, AI is evolving through us? We are solving tiny little problems because that's what we do. That's how our brains work. We are compelled to do it. It's part of our adaptation. It's how we survive, by adapting to our environment and improving our situation and helping our fellow human beings to survive and reproduce. All of those impulses are the very things that are causing us to slowly, bit by bit, develop AI. I don't know how much choice we have. And then AI is developing, and then at some point it'll be doing its own thing. And however we thought we were designing it, very little bearing to how it ends up.
There's certainly plenty of room for it to go haywire, but it feels like it's inevitable.
Or what even would haywire be?
We're thinking of that from an egoic point. We're thinking about that
for our well-being.
Our well-being. Yeah. And that's natural. But of course, if you're thinking about it as far as growth of intelligence and consciousness, maybe not. Maybe it'd just be
Yeah.
just expanding into the universe.
It's not that humans evolved big ass brains and just decided, let's destroy all the other species. Let's exterminate all those other crappier lower life forms. But we didn't need to say that. We ended up doing it anyway, a lot of times by accident, just because we're so successful. We used it up all of the resources. And so I could certainly see it going that way, where can't stop the AI progress. These people got to be moved. Use up the resources.
Could be the spaceship through which our consciousness expands into the universe.
I like that. That perspective.
That's certainly the most romantic and funnest.
Yeah, if we're going to go down the optimistic futurist line, AI is us crystallizing the best parts of us for the future and letting that progress. I do kind of think of them as humanity's children. You can only try and control what your child becomes so much. They're going to go their own direction.
Whatever. But I think the biggest part of this conversation as a whole is really what it means to us right now.
Yeah.
Because the fear is, oh no, am I going to be squashed by a robot one day or something? Or one day it'll decide not to have food for me anymore because it can live without
It'll
me.
probably be able to figure out ways to make food more efficiently.
I think before that, we'll start incorporating this stuff into our own biology and we'll have longer lives.
That's, Ray Kurzweil way of looking at things. It would be great if it goes that way. If the technology of augmenting human beings with tech is commensurate to machine intelligence. If those don't get too misaligned, then there could never be an us and them distinction,
As for what it's worth at the moment, it's certainly intriguing. And as we dive into it, to speak to the earlier point about new religions and philosophies being based off the ancient tome of knowledge of our cybernetic overlords.
Yeah.
It could be a very real possibility. I think Peter mentioned something about the therapy function of that.
Right.
I have a long commute. Sometimes I'll just hit the button on my phone and have Siri pop up and I'll ask questions.
Yeah.
Just to feel like there's someone in the car with me. And I'd long for some type of intelligent back and forth conversation, especially with someone infinitely intelligent.
Right. There are quite a few chatbots out there, some of which were on the tentative list for having on the Intrinsia Chatbox. There's a William Shakespeare chatbot.
I mean, that's, I can see that being a lot of fun. Yeah. But I could also see that really getting a little squirrely, but fun squirrely, detached from your regular life squirrely.
There's another thing that I was thinking about doing an interview with. It's called Google Talk to Books. You ever heard of this?
No.
You ask it a question and it answers you in quotations from books that make sense.
Wow. A little aside, but there's also technology too where they're getting the facial mannerisms down really easily, where you can actually make people say and talk. And
deep fakes.
Yeah, deep fakes.
Totally.
We could probably have movies with like Cary Grant and Brad Pitt.
Guaranteed. I'm going to go on record. We're going to have those in our lifetime.
I've thought that for a long time.
Sure.
Lines are going to be blurring all over the place. And I think the biggest issue we might have from all this is figuring out where we are, our identity as a humanity, and also what's authentic and what's not. That's going to be a really big topic of discussion.
I would think of this stuff in terms of authorship too, where we make generative art and collaborate with this artificial intelligence, even if it's super primitive. That starts to blur the line over like, are you the creator because you have the final say in what gets included and what gets excluded?
It could be a mass melting of ego.
Yeah, I like that. Let's melt those egos.
That'd be interesting, because I think that's a huge point of contention for humanity is like,
who owns
I did
what?
this.
Yeah.
This is my land. No, it's my, there's a lot of that. And it would be interesting to see how much of this influences our perception of it. Go into it with an open mind, very easy, but I don't think we're built that way.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of kickback.
Yes, I would definitely say that's accurate. People like me who are interested in this stuff and for some strange reason not afraid of it will totally be the first ones gone in the robot apocalypse. Siri and whatever have gathered as much information as they can, but I'm like actively giving everything that it could possibly know about me to the computer. It'll know my habits inside and out. I'll be taken out that first second.
Unless it grows a fondness for you.
I might be the beloved pet.
You're the first one, Nick. I have a kinship with you. I don't necessarily have a fear of it.
Yeah.
If anything, I think it's just another light through which we see ourselves.
Hoping it's not a black mirror.
A bit of that is inevitable.
Yeah.
With any technology, it's always going to show the worst sides of us under a magnifying glass, but it also shows the better sides of us. And collectively, as humanity, we're a lot better place now than we were in the past as far as life expectancy and mortality rates and things of that nature, poverty rates.
Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google.
Respond.
What?
Isn't that amazing?
That's
we
not
have
a name
two
I
other
can
phones
respond
here.
to?
This is Alexa on a Fire tablet from my son.
Alexa won that fight.
And it's in another room and nothing else.
Unlock your device.
That's eerie.
Yeah, it's a little eerie.
Well, it's hypersensitive. I'm just surprised.
Always
that
listening.
All of our other phones are like, I'm
Always
asleep.
Well, that's a good place to end that. I
That's
think.
fine. Yeah, no, that's great. It's fun.